Hi guys, welcome to another one of my videos, and today we're going to be talking about cadet pilot programs. There's been a lot of confusion surrounding cadet pilot programs. A lot of you have been writing in, and I hope this video can substantially answer most of your queries. Now, let's start with defining what a cadet pilot program is. A cadet pilot program is essentially an airline taking responsibility for all of your training from ab initio to an airline cockpit right after high school or 12th till you get to the airline cockpit. So let's break the steps up into broadly 4 steps. You are looking at a commercial pilot's license, followed by a multi-engine rating, followed by a type rating, followed by airline training, airline specific training. Let's call these the 4 steps. What a cadet pilot program does is gives you these 4 steps within the airline. Now, traditionally, what a aspiring pilot would do is he would go and get his commercial pilot's license from a flying school. Then maybe the flying school would help him with a multi-engine rating. If the flying school doesn't help him with a multi-engine rating, he goes to another flying school for a multi-engine rating. Thereafter, he's expected to apply to an airline, either at the commercial pilot's license level, wherein he competes with thousands of other candidates, or he could choose to go and get type rated. So if you know the kind of aircraft you want to fly, either the 737 or the A320 or the ATR, you could choose to go and get type rated on one of those airplanes and then apply to an airline which has those airplanes, and they would accept you as a type rated candidate. So traditionally, what most candidates would do is they'd get a CPL, they'd get the multi-engine rating, and they would also get a type rating and then apply to one of the airlines that they want to fly. Now, what a cadet pilot program does is it has the airline trainer candidate for all of this. So an airline picks you up after your 12th or your high school, all right, puts you through a screening process wherein they have a written test, they have an interview, they probably have a simulator check, a basic simulator check. They test you on your basic knowledge of aviation, and based on the way you fare, you are accepted into the cadet pilot program. Now, the cadet pilot program will train you for, number 1, your CPL. They will send you to an approved CPL training center, approved by the airline, followed by a multi-engine rating, which in all probability will be done at the same training center, followed by a type rating, which the airline will conduct at one of their approved training centers, followed by the airline training process, training you in their SOPs, training you in their procedures, the works. During this cadet pilot program, the airline will insert various checks. For example, you need to clear the regulatory examinations in India. If the airline sends you to the US, you'll need to get an American CPL, come back to India, give the DDCA conversion examinations, convert your American CPL to an Indian CPL. That is one check. If you manage to not clear the regulatory examinations, you obviously fail the cadet pilot program. Number 2, when they send you for your type rating, you go through a whole bunch of checks. Checks during your type rating, checks after your type rating. Typically 3 checks after your type rating. If you don't clear those checks, you obviously fail the cadet pilot program. Based on the airline policy, you'll be given a certain number of chances, but this is how the airline regulates quality within a cadet pilot program. Now, once you're done with the cadet pilot program and you're done with your type rating, the airline finally offers you employment and starts paying you. Maybe there are some airlines that pay you during the cadet pilot program, they'll call it a stipend, but let's assume most airlines will start paying you only after you're done with your final sim check or your final simulator check post the type rating. Now, after you're done with your type rating, you are fully employed with the airline. They send you for your standard operating procedure training, your SOP training in the airline, followed by your supernumerary flights and your supervised line flying, after which you're released as a first officer in that airline. That's when you're fully released as a first officer, fully employed with the airline, and flying as a first officer on the line. This is what a cadet pilot program does, as opposed to originally a candidate doing his CPL separately, doing his multi-engine rating probably with the CPL or separately, doing his type rating sponsored by himself, followed by applying to an airline with the type rating, and then going through the airline training process. So let's talk about some of the advantages of a cadet pilot program. This is a favorite question that most people want to ask. The biggest advantage of a cadet pilot program is the fact that you prepone the decision of airline employment. Traditionally, a candidate would go and get a CPL, a multi-engine rating, a type rating, and then apply to an airline. That's when you know if you're going to get into the airline or not. With a cadet pilot program, you know if you're going to get into the airline right in the beginning, followed by you making the standard of the airline, as I mentioned earlier. You're clearing your sim checks, you're clearing your examinations, but as long as you can do that, you can rest assured that the airline is going to employ you and you're going to get paid at the end of the day as a flying first officer in the airline, as a line first officer in the airline. As opposed to the traditional process wherein you do all your courses, your CPL, your multi-engine, your type rating, spend all that money, and you don't know if an airline is going to employ you till after your type rating. The second biggest advantage of a cadet pilot program is orientation. Most pilots do a traditional CPL at a flying school without the aegis of an airline over that course. So you're doing a traditional normal CPL. Then you do a multi-engine rating, then you do a type rating. Now, a type rating done by an airline as opposed to a generic type rating training organization or a TRTO. Now, the difference between doing a type rating by yourself from a generic TRTO and doing a type rating through an airline is SOPs. Airlines fly based on standard operating procedures, and these standard operating procedures are applied in a type rating course conducted by an airline. Whereas a traditional type rating that you do by yourself or a self-sponsored type rating is a generic type rating. It takes into account no specific airline. So once you're done with your type rating, you are qualified to fly that kind of airplane, but you're not qualified to fly that kind of airplane based on an airline's standard operating procedures. That's what a cadet pilot program gives you. A cadet pilot program, right from your CPL days, orients you for flying procedures specific to the company you've joined. It makes your course a lot more easy, and it makes your course a lot more streamlined and organized. One of the biggest disadvantages of a cadet pilot program is the fact that it's very, very expensive. I don't want to speak about specific cadet pilot programs because I don't make airline specific comments here. They're all really good courses, and they all speak of amazing quality as long as you can study hard. But they are a whole lot more expensive than doing a traditional CPL followed by a multi followed by a type rating. Most of my blogs and most of my articles on Quora will list out the costs for a traditional CPL plus multi plus type done by you, and you would see that the cost would be anywhere between 50 to 55 lakh Indian rupees. A cadet pilot program would be way more than that. It will cost anywhere between 30 to 50 lakhs more than that. There are cadet pilot programs in India priced at around 85 lakhs, and there are cadet pilot programs in India that cost more than a crore. Whether or not you want to spend that money really depends on your affordance. Okay, so should I do a cadet pilot program or should I do a traditional CPL multi-type? It really depends on your budgets, and it really depends on your cost constraints. Aviation is an expensive profession. You need to make sure that you have a minimum of 55 lakhs available either in your pockets or through finance or loans. Make sure the loans are not too big because it is an expensive profession and it is a very competitive profession. So in the event that you end up spending all that money on a loan and you don't get a job, you could put yourself in a pretty pickle. You don't want to do that. As far as cadet pilot programs are concerned, I urge every single one of you to get into a cadet pilot program only if you can see the entire payment through, most of it by yourself, not with a loan. Please understand there are no scholarships available for a cadet pilot program. There are only loans and bank finance that you can count on. So think carefully, think hard, and make sure you aren't getting into a financial obligation which you would not be able to undo later on. I hope this video has answered a few of your queries. If you have any more queries, you could always head out to my blog, and as usual, put down a comment and I'd be happy to respond. And keep visiting the blog for updates on the article. Keep putting down comments, keep asking questions so there's more clarity with pilot training. Guys, if this video has helped you, please share it with as many aspiring commercial pilots as you can, like yourself, so they can benefit from it as well. The objective of these videos and these articles is to get rid of all the misinformation around pilot training. Like, comment and subscribe for queries. I'm going to put the links down here. And as always, to safer skies and happy landings. Have a great day, guys.